Hey everybody, Midgardswell here. Today we're going to do a quick video about creating your first vase. We're going to be going out and looking for, hopefully trying to keep it under $50.
We'll be heading to the River Market Antique Store. Antique stores are a beautiful place to start looking. We're going to have a few videos after this one between Allie, myself, Roman, Brian will be in some of them, discussing certain objects for vase, whether they are extremely pagan and obvious or a bit more hidden and metaphorical.
Our goal is to help you be overt or as loud and proud as you want to be.
That being said, as Chris said, it is coming from different people, so there's going to be several different camera people, speakers. Notice and forewarning, it will be a little bit choppy as we sew these pieces together, just because we're all inside of a busy antique store and just trying to grab something really quick without being caught with our cameras. You'll see when we get the vase together, it may even come from several different stores, and we'll tie that together at the end.
And it is important to note that thrift stores and antique stores are beautiful sources. You do not have to buy online. You do not have to buy big, expensive pieces, but it is important to buy local for your community.
Buy local.
And we'll always go over other things too, including making your own from things you find, repurposing.
Yeah. Catch that in another episode.
Alrighty, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you back here when we have the vase together.
Alright, let's go hit the thrift stores.
Yep. So, found this piece. Really nice and beautiful. One of the things to think about for something like this, or something like this, is which god or goddess in particular you want to talk to. Something like this could be for Skathi as a huntress, or Uller in the same. This nice base part here you could paint, put names on, or even something that's just as simple as this. It doesn't have to be painted, it does not have to have their name on it. As long as you know what the piece is for, they'll be able to tell.
Alright, so here's a vendor here that's specializing in wooden bowls. Wooden bowls already are really awesome for offering pieces. You can see they've got all kinds of items down the shelf here. I'm a little blocked out of the way, but I did find, here's a bowl. It's shaped like an apple. Alright, so it sits flat. Apples, of course, are representative of Idun, whose golden apples of the tree of Yggdrasil provide the everlasting life for the gods. Because it's food, it works really well for putting food offerings whenever you're making an offering on your bloats.
Another really amazing thing to think about is how agricultural and how tradesman-orientated our people were. So something for a modern-day trade, a hammer for Thor, or just for the dwarves, something to signify those kind of makes, woodcraft, metalcraft, cooking craft. All of it has something to do with the Aesir and Vanir in some way. One of the other things to think about is a god of war. Now yes, none of these swords are authentic to a Viking age, but I would never put it past Odin to use a modern morning star on somebody's face.
So one of the things that's really important about a vase is also the remembrance it can hold. So here we have this golden woman figure in a picture frame. So a lost loved one, like a mother, grandmother, father, aunt, uncle, someone of the family that you've lost and want to remember on your vase, being held and protected by a Valkyrie.
So reusing things that are more Christianized is something that is really easy to do, especially since this is very clearly harvest related, and it can definitely represent harvest gods, especially since it is they who keep us fed for the most part, and without them, you know, we don't have food. Same thing goes for this lovely apple. This could definitely represent Idun. It would be suggested that you repaint it so that they're golden apples and not red delicious, but to each their own.
One of the most important things to also remember with our gods is how much they were involved in agriculture and trade and used their hands and so much of the crafting that they taught us. So finding things of make and model, a nice piece of sai for Freyr or Freya, some masting for Njord or Ran, sea gods, agricultural gods, gods of the field. It's very easy to find something in a hardware section as well. So another thing to do is to not only think about the gods, but the animals themselves, whether it be the eagles that rested upon the top of Yggdrasil, or something for Gullinbursti, Freyr's boar, or something just as simple as for Forseti, the god of law and justice, a scale. So it doesn't have to be directly a part of the god. It can simply be something that might solidify what the god stands for, or what they do with their time. A hunter god, a justice god, or a god of agriculture.
Okay. just stumbled across an actual Norse pagan drinking horn, engraved with a poor rendition of what I would say is Jormungandr.
Natural dried anything will be a great addition to any vase that you build. These kind of things are definitely representative of our nature gods and our fertility and harvest gods. These are a great way to represent the land. It's best to find things that naturally grow in your area. Herbal shops are some of the best ways to find these, and you can find these cheaply, usually within your own grocery store or farmer's.
So an amazing thing for, let's say, Frigga, a goddess seen with a distaff and a spinner, would be beautiful yarns and doilies, wonderful material that you would offer to her.
So here's a cup that's almost the right shape for Pertho. It does have a handle, and Pertho is a good cup shape to use for offerings. You see how it's wide at the bottom and then narrow in the middle, and then it flares back out at the top. It's more or less what you're looking for with cups like that. So there are a lot of birds in our mythos, one of which is the swan. She can be turned, well, you wouldn't want to turn her into anything at this point, but there are Valkyries that do turn into swans. So this would be a good representation for them, as well as so many different birds, especially if you're wanting to build your Yggdrasil to look accurately mythos-wise.
So more on the Christian iconography here. This is a little Franciscan monk. This is actually a wood carving from Mexico, according to the tag, but can be easily used for Odin, Kvasir, anybody else representing knowledge, or whatever else you see fit. Just a quick repainting to repurpose and put on the.
And of course, a very easy yet always used method of offering to the gods is jewelry. Gold, silvers, brass, pewter, beautiful stones. These kind of things will always please the gods. Amber for Freya, silver for the ancestors, the dwarves, beautiful golden rings for Freyr or Freya. I would normally say stones and jewelry are just a constant great offering. They have been used since the dawn of religion, and they will be used till the fall of it. So of course, I really don't think I need to tell any of you why this is a good idea. Just a simple wooden mallet, $10, perfect for Thor.
Something I would do is avoid using anything with crosses, because the only way to really emphasize and use it in a Norse pagan vase is to hang it upside down, and then you risk, Christian friends and family coming over and thinking you worship the devil. If you're okay with that, then good on you, but realistically it doesn't really make the shape of a hammer. Alright, here's another excellent piece. It is a stag. So you could definitely use this to represent Freyr, and you can put offerings and stuff in it because it is a napkin holder, and it's got a stag on both sides. So you could definitely use this as a symbol of Freyr, and any of the hunting gods as well, like Ul.
Something else that is a wonderful idea for a vase or shrine is a way to level things, or to give them their own plaque. For instance, Odin could be on his very own plaque at the highest part, while you could have other gods layered next to him.
So a shelf like this is an easy, especially if you don't have a lot of space, an easy way to do a vase. It's got 5 shelves, and it is, big enough for something kind of small. If you're doing something grand, you will need something bigger, or you can add on bookshelves on either side, or more shelves on the wall, to allow you to really utilize your space.
Kind of like mentioned before, we all know what this is for. But always continue to look around. Even if you find one hammer you like, you might find a bigger, badder hammer you want even more. So always, always make sure to look around when you're shopping for your vase. Check out the whole store first. Don't just buy something and leave.
Obviously, one of the easiest things to find around here in the Heartland is Christian iconography, but we can also utilize, when repainted, images of Mary. This one is actually a lamp for Sif. Alright, obviously animal figurines are a very popular thing. You can find them all over the place, and there are all sorts of animals, right? Here's a huge collection of dogs. Lots of fine things here. But obviously with animals, that means you're going to find cats. right? Cats obviously are symbols of Freya, making it really easy to find something for Freya.
These keys would be
Here's one even made out of quartz, right? Quartz crystal, as you'll see in another part of the video, is a pretty good thing to have on the vase. Has a lot of awesome properties with it, and absorbing all kinds of energies from yourself, for the vase, from the gods, all sorts of animals to represent the various gods. Just keep your mind in metaphors.
So one of our favorite things to do is to use Christmas decorations, because you can use things like reindeer to represent the hunting gods as well as Freyr. You can use, this Santa specifically, as his eye is closed, makes a good Odin. Christmas decorations are just some of the easiest because Christians took a lot of that from our brand of paganism, so it just makes it easy to...
One of the creatures in the mythology that is oft forgot is Audumla, since she's the cow that everything comes from. I mean, yeah, this is a little cutesy. I'll probably find a better one here to show everyone here in a little bit, but keep an eye out for cows, the origin of everything.
So this would be a good piece to make into something like Odin or Bragi. It's nice, it's wood, it's lightweight, and it's only $20, which truly beats some of the more modern statues that you have, and for the most part it almost looks like he's missing an eye, so you could really pass him off as something like Odin.
So sometimes you find something where you really just gotta tilt your head to the side and you just really love it. Here's a pair of shoes, right? In our modern sensibilities, they look kind of like elf shoes, or like little, something silly, that like North Pole kind of elves. But they're still representative. If that's how you see it, you can use it for like a land wights and other elves like that.
So this is something that you can use, again, for just about any of the sea gods. It may seem plain, it may seem easy, but especially if you are an overt pagan and trying to hide your paganism from those that you love, this is an easy way to build your altar, is with things that are simple and not as in your face as this.
So make sure that you look absolutely everywhere when you're making an investigation for parts for a vase or a shrine. Looking through a toy section, and you randomly come upon an unstrung, beautiful bow. Nice recurve, a perfect thing to offer on a vase or to give to Skathi.
Alright, so as you can tell so far, like we mentioned earlier, we're looking for metaphor. Alright, so here we've got this little pitcher. It's like a brass. You can see it's not in the greatest of condition as far as being taken care of. But we've got this little guy playing lute, lyre, guitar, something. Right, and everyone's coming in to listen. The dogs even sing along, so obviously this works for Bragi, god of poetry and song.
Something like this would be an absolute beautiful piece for Skathi. A free woman, bow in hand, out to hunt and bring her own food to her own table. Always look around. Every nook and cranny might just have something. And of course here we have a marvelous Gulenbursti.
So here's a Santa Claus that would actually make a really good Bragi, because it almost looks like, a horn, and he is cast in bronze, so he's going to be nice and heavy, and it looks almost like he's doing something musical. At the same time, this could be just about anybody that you wanted to make him into.
Alright, so we found these really cool pieces here. These are actually horns. They look like fish. When you come out a little bit, there's a pair of them. They look like ships. Right, so just a neat little find. It says Ecuador here, but they are made out of horn. Works for Ran, goddess of the ocean. Works for Njord, the Vanir of travelers. So sometimes we don't take a second to look at what the vase itself actually is. So here's a wonderful piece of rigging. It hangs in the ceiling. This is about 6 feet tall, right, hanging from the ceiling, but you can put everything you need and arrange it inside here, fill it with effigies, make a little terrarium or diorama sort of a thing, or use it for candle burning and incense. Alright, so obviously there's all kinds of fun stuff that you can find. In this particular case, this is just a giant, heavy ceramic brain. If you are really into, your thing is being knowledgeable, being wise, this is something you put on your vase for Kvasir.
So these are another good piece. One is, isn't it? Blatantly kind of a childlike Freyr. And the girl could be just about any fertility goddess, most likely Sif. You can really recreate them for your own needs. You could also make it Freya and keep the pair as a pair. It's kind of childlike, but definitely something that can blend.
So something you just found? roosters. Now, a lot of people don't think of roosters when they think of Norse mythology and the sagas, but there is Gulenkambi, a rooster who actually awakens the Reinhardt each morning in Valhalla.
So again, owls are a symbol of Frigg for the most part. Some owls can also represent Freya. Something like these you can repaint and make your own, but they would be a good wall piece. So these aren't quite Viking age, but you can definitely use them as decorative elements to represent gods like Hermod and just warriors in general. Does not have to be Viking age, but it still can represent fighting like these.
Alright, so little figurine shoes are kind of a funny thing on their own, but they tend to be all over the place when you're looking at antique stores and places like that. But a little shoe can be representative of the death shoes that you want to wear, that you want to have someone put on you after you pass, before you're cremated, to represent the shoes that you wear when you're walking in the valley of death on your way to be judged.
Something like this would be a fantastic representation of Mani, since it also kind of represents Bill and Hyoki at the same time, because he is in a crescent shape. Things like this are really easy to represent our, celestial being gods, and very easy to find.
Another really amazing thing to think about are the way that our ancestors worked. So this large forge billow here would be an amazing piece, although expensive, to put on a vase to honor ancestors of the craft. Now, of course, $225. There is no reason to really need to spend that much unless you fall in love with the item and have the cash to spend. If so, do so. You're a free man and woman. You're more than free to do such a thing. But looking at it gives you a really good idea of how to make one if you need to. And sometimes making things is near infinitely cheaper.
Something like this, which is a bear mask made from an actual bear pelt, can be used if you're more of a shaman type of practice. Pelts in general are a great thing to use, even if you aren't shamanistic, but this is a very shaman aspect. So this is something that would be unique. So these are wonderful keys. Keys can definitely be used to represent Frigg. They're a great, easy way to represent one of the goddesses, and you can get skeleton keys just about anywhere. We do obviously support shopping local here, but I mean, you can use old house keys, for instance. They don't have to be skeleton keys.
Another wonderful thing to find are wooden figures like these. These small wooden figures normally would not have much meaning in a place like this, as no one knows their original purpose for being made. But wonderful wooden statues like those and like this guy are perfect to use on vase, the warrior, or the elders and scholars. All of these things can be used to simplify a god of war or a god of poetry. Even old weapons for decoration can do the same.
So this is the table we are starting with. This is a table we just had laying around. You can use literally anything. For instance, I use a TV stand. Roman uses a fireplace mantle. Jamie and Brian use a bay window. Chris uses a nice little alcove in his apartment. You can literally use any surface that you can find. It doesn't have to be specifically made for being an altar.
So now we'll be talking about the three most basic yet important parts of a vase. First off is the hammer. This is Mjolnir, the hammer worn by Thor. It represents not only him, but the entire religion in itself. This is the main symbol for the Satru, Fornsetter, or however you want to call the belief of the Norse gods. Secondly is the bowl. The bowl is useful in the fact that it collects the offerings, whether it be food, jewelry, mead, beer, or yarn that you yourself spun. Offerings do not have to be of great monetary value. Now, the thing that creates such a beautiful relationship between us and our gods, besides the offerings we give to them, is how we share. And that comes in the form of the horn. The horn is a staple to any Norse outfit or look. These horns have been used throughout many ages. They represent the passing of friendship. One drinks from the horn, passes to the other, and allows that person to drink from it. sharing, and true hospitality is shown. So now we will move on to the more forgotten, but obviously important part of vase.
And that's to represent your ancestors. It is important to make sure that you are representing your ancestors simply because this is the main basis of our religion. These are my grandfathers. It is important to also note that if you do decide that you're going to make offerings to them, that it's something that you have to be consistent on, or else you may risk angering the whites and your ancestors that live within your house. These can be trinkets that you use to represent your ancestors, like I use a pocket watch for my grandfather as well, or knives, things that belong to them. You can use a wide variety, but pictures are the easiest typically.
So we'll go through representing metaphor. We'll go from the least obvious, or the most obvious to the least obvious in the next items we go through. As we said, this is kind of like the bare minimum for a vase. Your ancestors are absolutely important, and then starting off with the hammer, the bowl, and the horn. Going in next is actual figures. So anything that represents like an old man, a bearded man, looks like a wanderer, can be one-eyed, two-eyed, Santa Claus, really anything that looks like an older bearded gentleman to obviously represent Odin. If you find a piece, whether it's got two eyes or one eye, doesn't really matter. You can hide one of the two eyes to make it even more clearly Odin. Sometimes you have to change a piece up. So you got here a little brown Franciscan Monk guy. He's reading a book. Obviously he'll be painted, maybe remove the cross, however, but because he's reading a book and he's there, he's knowledgeable, we see him as Forseti or Kvasir.
Another great option is using American-style figurines of hardworking Americans, children, however you see it. Figurines are a great aspect to use simply because if your grandma comes over, it looks like you've just started a collection she can understand. With these ones specifically, they work as Freyr and Freya, simply because of the fertility aspects, the usage of scythe and the Freyr, the reference to fertility with the eggs with Freya, and the fact that she's wearing combat boots. So it is important that if you're going to go with something that isn't necessarily strictly pagan or outright pagan, that you're using symbology. And it's very much the intent of the piece that you put on there, so just make sure you're paying attention to how you want this to be.
So going on the level of intent, especially if you're trying to really hide what your vase or altar looks like, it's easiest to find figurines of animals. Almost every god, goddess, spirit, person in the religion, the sagas, the Eddas, is represented by some form of animal. Here we've got this crystal boar to represent the golden golem Bursti, the gift to Freyr by the dwarves, who also gave Mjolnir, Dropir, and Odin's spear. So the boar for Freyr, rams for Thor, wolves for Odin,
And owls for Frigg or Freya.
And so after this, there are many other things that you can throw in. Trinkets, small objects. Such trinkets can be something like this. A pitcher of brass with a man playing a lute on it. Could represent Bragi, could simply represent the festivities of Valhalla.
Another thing that you can add are stones and little trinkets such as that. Stones contain energy, they can allow you to bless the space, and specifically, that is a sunstone. So it means even more to our ancestors and our way of belief.
So basically all of this shows, starting with the bare minimum of the three pieces in the ancestors, and then piece together as many gods as speak to you to start with, and then filling out the pantheon with more and more metaphor that you can find as you collect pieces. Everyone's vase is a little bit different. There's no set rules to an altar or vase.
You do not need a set. All of your pieces do not have to match. Look in the Eddas themselves and you will see that the gods, none of them are alike. They are very different and flamboyant in their personality. So your vase can represent that as well.
And it's important to know that your vase represents you and your ancestor line as well. So making it personalized to you is going to be the most appropriate thing you can do when building your vase.
So that's been our quick introduction on vase building, from the basics to the metaphorical. thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing and hearing more from you, visiting, and getting to share even more knowledge from the well. So, as it is sadly the time for us all to go, we must say,
Thanks
thank
for drinking
you
from
for
the
drinking
well.
from the well.